Welcome to Around the Weird. Here's your host, the museum curator of the strange and unusual, Mr. Nothing.
Thank you, mysterious voice, and welcome back to Around the Weird, a booktube channel where I talk about all the unusual and out of the ordinary literature that I have found in my travels. Today, I want to talk about some manga that I read. I am back on that manga graphic novel grind. And today's manga is all about a family with a great deal of secrets. I am referring to Spy X Family, or Spy Family as it's properly called, by Tatsuya Endo, which was published in 2019. For those who don't know, Tatsuya Endo is a Japanese manga writer, having started written manga since the year 2000. And it's been noted that his works are mainly, for the most part, have been dark or psychological, kind of bombastic in nature, whereas Spy Family is probably Tatsuya's first work where it's lighthearted and a bit comical in nature. So a different shift, although you could argue that it's still pretty dark, given that it focuses on an assassin and this entire family is lying about who they are, and the child is worried about being sent back to an orphanage. So it's still pretty dark, but it is a bit funnier probably than the rest of his works. I haven't encountered any of his works again because I've only recently started reading manga, but I was definitely a fan of Spy Family, which I'll talk about later. So without further ado, let's talk about Spy Family. I will do a summary, a little bit of analysis, and we will move on from there. So Spy Family focuses on a Cold War era spy named Twilight. This actually seemingly takes place in the 1980s in a fictionalized version of Europe. The spy named Twilight has been tasked with keeping the peace between Astania and Westalice, which are the stand-ins for East and West Germany. And his specific task is to assassinate a Westalice leader named Desmond, who is threatening to unravel the peace between these two nations. Unfortunately, Desmond, he doesn't show up in public very often, and so Twilight has to infiltrate the school where he sends his child. And in order to do that, he has to create his own family, which Twilight doesn't like because he doesn't want to work with amateurs. However, he does go to an orphanage and he adopts a small child named Anya that the orphanage just wanted to get rid of. What Twilight doesn't know is that Anya is a telepath who understands that Twilight is a spy now and loves it because she's a 5-year-old girl, 6-year-old girl, and she's able to basically say whatever Twilight wants to hear because, again, she can hear what he's thinking. While Twilight leaves Anya home alone one time, a criminal organization comes for Twilight and grabs Anya instead. Twilight manages to find her and rescue her from the criminal organization before trying to return her back to the orphanage. However, Anya grabs onto him while he's wearing a cover, and again, she can kind of see through his cover. He decides to hold on to her for a little bit longer, and Anya passes the school entrance exam barely, but she manages to do it thanks in part to her being able to kind of read the thoughts of others. Meanwhile, there is an assassin running about named the Thorn Princess, who is assassinating bureaucrats. We find out that this woman's name is Yor, and she is being kind of pressured by her family and her coworkers into entering into a relationship because they say that if any young woman who's not in a relationship will likely be a spy or something like that, and so they might get turned into the police. And so Yor has no choice but to pretend to be in one. And luckily enough, she runs into Twilight, and Anya facilitates all of this by reading both of their minds. And again, Anya is kind of scared about Yor, but wants a mother and is willing to make all of this kind of happen in order to help Twilight with his overall mission. And so Yor and Twilight engage in this pretend relationship, which they're both aware of, that it is pretend and for appearances. Twilight goes on a date with Yor at a party and appeases everyone there. And Yor agrees to go to the school interview in order to make it seem like they are one big happy family. And then Yor and Twilight also fight a smuggling ring in the process. Twilight tells Yor that this is part of his therapy that he does. It's concussive therapy. And Yor is very skilled, but she asserts that this is all just yoga on her part. And then after they get rid of the smuggling ring, they get fake married, and they're able to adjust the paperwork so it goes back a year and it appears like they've been married even longer than they actually are. And then when the entire family goes out one day, they manage to help stop a mugging with their mutual powers, which is nice. And then they show up to the admissions interview, which they pass, but many of the men recognize that their family is non-traditional, and so they attempt to bring them down any way possible. One person even calls them out and says that they're not a real family because Twilight remarried, and they say that Anya likes her real mother more, just saying really unkind things. But that person is punished for being such a jerk, and it does seem like they're going to actually let Twilight and Anya into the school. And as the story comes to a close, the entire family celebrates, although Anya is worried about being sent to an orphanage if this doesn't go off as well as it should. And there's also the assumption that, things are going to get pretty scary because everyone is hiding some sort of secret from another person, and that's where it ends there. In terms of analysis, Volume 1 of Spy Family provides us with quite a bit to think about. One of the themes that Endo is working with is that of playing a role. Each member is playing a certain role in this sort of pretend family. That of the father, that of the mother, that of the wife, that of the husband, that of the child. Normally, people don't act this way in a family, but they're all trying to accomplish something. Allow me to read you a quote from the beginning of this volume. Okay, fine then. I abandoned my identity when I became Twilight. A father is just another role to play, and I will play it to perfection for the sake of a better world. And there you see, the essence of Twilight's character. He's doing spy work in order to ensure peace in the world, and he's doing it by playing this role. This isn't who he actually is. This is just a character that he's playing among the many other characters that he's done for his spy work. And Yor is pretty similar. Yor doesn't want to be a mother, doesn't want to be a wife. She's pretty happy on her own, but she's only engaging in this pretend relationship to satisfy her brother's queries about what's going on with her, and to satisfy her coworkers who are prying into her business and being intensely invasive in that way. And then Anya, for her part, she actually wants a mother and a father. So she needs to play the role of the perfect daughter, of the highly intelligent daughter in order to get into the school. And she also needs to manipulate through her telepathy Yor and Twilight. So they're all kind of playing a role, all kind of just manipulating each other in order to get what they want. But the question is, is this going to develop into something more permanent? Is there going to be an actual bond formed between these people? We have to read on to really understand, but I do think that's probably what this series is going to be getting at, that they're going to be pretending for so long that they actually fall for each other and actually love being around one another, which is very wholesome. And I hope that is what happens with this series, and that it doesn't become an incredibly dark and sad affair. Tatsuya Endo is also working with dramatic irony here. I think this is one of the clearer examples in fiction of dramatic irony, and that's due to the characters' double lives. We, the audience, know something that a character in the story doesn't know. Both Yor and Twilight are unaware of each other's double lives, and they're also unaware that Anya can read their minds. So whenever Yor says something about, Twilight, you're such or Lloyd, because that's what she calls him. Lloyd, you're such an interesting therapist. We, the audience, know that Lloyd isn't actually a therapist. And when Twilight says that, Yor is great at yoga and whatnot, we know that's not the case for her because she's actually an assassin. And when they all remark how precocious Anya is and how she's able to do exactly what they're thinking, it's because we know that is the case. Like she's psychic or telepathic, so she knows what they're thinking and what they want. And in fact, Anya's an interesting character here because she's the only person who knows all three things: that she's a telepath, that Yor is an assassin, and that Twilight is a spy. Like Yor and Twilight don't know that. So the dramatic irony really only exists for Yor and Twilight, but it does create a pretty comical situation there. Endo also seems to be talking a little bit about family pressure here. Like, he specifically seems to be criticizing family advocates as well as the push for people to be in a family. We see this initially with Yor because her brother and her coworkers are pushing her to get married. There's kind of a sort of a blackmail going on because they tell her, like, oh, women who are single, who aren't in relationships, they're often caught by the police and tried for being spies. Do you want that to happen to you? And to add on to that, you also see the stuffy Eden administrators criticizing this non-traditional family because it's very normal to have a husband, father, a stepmom, step character, and a child in a relationship. That's what modern life is like these days. But these administrators are like, oh, this isn't what a normal family looks like. This is different and cheap and not the same. And they even go so far as to point out that Anya doesn't love Yor in the same way that she loved her original mother. And given this is all fake and whatnot, they're probably right on some level to call it out. They don't know that they're right. So I think that's the big difference, is that they're criticizing all of this and pushing people into boxes that they might not belong to. In the case of Yor, who shouldn't be forced into a relationship if that's not what she actually wants. And I could be, this is pretty lighthearted, but I could be, just forcing an interpretation on it that doesn't actually exist. But given that those people who are forcing those kind of family roles onto the characters are perceived as negative, like our coworkers are viewed as terrible people, like we're very clearly meant to hate them. And given that the Eden administrator is punched by one of the other Eden administrators for being such a inelegant jerk, like it does seem like Endo is making a very clear point here in that forcing roles onto other people and these expectations of family are a bit unclean or not welcome. And it might even be Endo like saying something that he's experienced himself. I don't know what his relationship status is or anything like that, but I know there is a pressure not only in America but also Japan to take on a family, to start a family and do all of that, and that's not for everyone sometimes. So I do think this is intentional, but I could also be kind of forcing that interpretation on the story. One problem that I'll note with Spy Family is that the dialogue can be hard to follow at times because the panel often has what two characters are saying, but it also has what the characters are thinking. It's sometimes hard to really follow because of that, because you're trying to figure out what the character is saying versus what they're thinking, and sometimes it doesn't really make a distinction like who is saying what, and so that can be a challenge. Of course, I understand why it needs to be that way, because again, these are characters living double lives, so they would be saying and thinking two different things. And also for Anya's entire character to happen, you kind of have to know what people are thinking so that she can manipulate and use that to her advantage. So I get it, but it does create a few problems that don't sync the story, but are just distracting. Anyway, those are my thoughts on Spy Family, Volume 1 by Tatsuya Endo. A really good manga. that I haven't read before, but I've heard a couple of my friends mention, so I'm really glad that I checked that out. I do recommend it to you out there if you're looking for a pretty entertaining manga. It's such a wide difference between Berserk, which I've been reading because that's extremely violent, and Spy Family, which is silly, a little bit violent, but more of a comical style of violence, and just hilarious at times because, again, not every character knows necessarily what's going on. It's kind of like a comedy of errors or something like that. So I do recommend this to you out there if you're looking for something interesting to read. If you have anything to say about my review or you just want to comment on Spy Family, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to have a discussion with you about this. Otherwise, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so that more people can find out about Spy Family or Tatsuya Endo if they don't already know. Also, join the Discord if you want to continue to have conversations about manga. And until then, I wish you the best of luck in your weird and double life travels. Farewell.